Hi there, my name's Dave Jackson. As you can see from the backdrop here, we've come all the way down to the Rock of Gibraltar. You know, when I was at school, history didn't mean much to me, but since being able to travel around the world and come to fantastic places like this, it really does have an effect when you think about the amount of events that went on here during the Second World War. Well, today I've got a man with me who is a legend in his time, Mr. Sidney Knowles, who was diving buddy to the very famous Commander Crabb during the Second World War, and after the Second World War in fact, and they were responsible for demining so many of the ships that left this harbour. Sidney Knowles, welcome.
Thank you.
It's lovely to speak to you. Let me shake your hand.
Thank you, sir.
Fine fellow. With regards to your diving career, there's a couple of things that have come out in history. There's a famous film that was made back in 1958 called The Silent Enemy, and it featured such famous actors as Sidney James, Lawrence Harvey, who played Commander Crabb.
Michael Craig, who played me.
Before we go into your diving career, though, and what you did here at Gibraltar, let's go back to your early days, shall we? Born in Preston in 1921.
Yes.
At a very early age, I believe you were quite involved in working in the old-fashioned cotton mills, weren't you?
Yes, my mother worked in a cotton mill, and each Saturday morning she had to go in to clean her loom to make sure no oil dripped upon the cotton that she was looming.
Yeah.
And every Saturday morning at the age of 7, I was asked to go in for 1 penny to work and clean underneath the looms where she could not reach. And also other weavers that came in on Saturday mornings, and they didn't get paid for this, you know. They had to keep their cloth clean, otherwise they didn't get paid for the work they did.
And this was part of their job that they never got paid extra for?
No, exactly.
And this was what, about 1928, 29,
yes.
1930?
Yes.
Around that time?
That's right.
What were conditions like in those cotton mills in those days to work?
Oh, absolutely awful. Don't forget, in those days there was no electric to drive the looms. It was all done on straps that ran overhead, and the noise of the pick and sticks bashing backwards and forward across the cloth was tremendous.
Yeah. Now I believe, Sidney, that you had quite a difficult upbringing because your mother died at quite an early age, didn't she?
Yes, when I was 12. Yes.
She was how old?
About 30.
About 30.
Yes.
And then you lived with your father, who was quite strict with you, wasn't he?
Tyrannical.
Tyrannical, was it
yes,
that bad?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. I think the point he was so like, he just returned from the Great War, and he'd been gassed, and he had been out in Mesopotamia, and I think it affected his mind.
Yeah.
My mother said he came back a different man completely than when he went away.
Yeah, yeah.
And why he was tyrannical, I don't know. It must have been the conditions he was fighting under, I presume.
Obviously the effects of the First World War had a major contribution or factor to that, but what about the death of his wife, your mother? Did that affect him as well?
No, not really affect him. No, his attitude was just the same all the time. I mean, he was a disciplinarian from the moment I can recall.
Yeah.
For instance, at meals, we had to stand at the table. We were not allowed to sit. My brother, David, was 4 years younger than me, and we had to stand at the table to eat.
Really?
Yes, that was it. There was a form of discipline, I presume.
Yeah. Now, yes. I also read something in your history that there was a stage where he would actually let you sit down at the dining table. What caused that? This was a bit of an advancement of you being made to stand for so many years.
Yes, it's because I'd reached 14.
Oh, I see. This was the golden age of...
Exactly, and went to work and brought home a few shillings every week.
So that was the deciding factor that then let you sit down at the dining
That's
table.
when we were allowed to sit down.
Yeah. Now, do you think that made you a better person?
Frankly, yes, yes. I recall with horror some of the times that my father disciplined us. Today this would never occur, but I used to get real backhanders, stinging backhanders, and leave marks on my face. Yeah. But in those days, people used to say, well, you should be a good boy.
Yeah. Now, you joined the Navy, but most people said that you joined the Navy as a volunteer because you were heroic and courageous and doing the thing for your country, but the real reason was you wanted to escape your father, didn't you?
I joined the Navy on the 3rd of September 1939, the day I actually joined on Saturday as the war broke out on Sunday.
So it was the same weekend?
Yeah, same weekend the war declared.
Goodness me. So what was your first job in the Navy when you joined?
My first job was I was detailed out to a destroyer, a tribal class destroyer HMS Zulu.
Yeah.
And I spent a couple of years aboard her doing convoy duties, etc., patrols in the North Atlantic and in the Denmark Strait.
Now, you had some pretty horrendous experiences, didn't you, during the war as a stoker, below decks when they were dive bombing?
Yes, you went down steps into the magazine and the lid was shut and you were surrounded by 4.7-inch shells.
Yeah.
And my job was to load them on than the previous one. And I had suddenly got this feeling when we got into Gibraltar one day out here, as you can see.
Yeah.
We come to load up, put the new shells in, etc., and the oil, fuel for the boilers. And I had this sudden awful feeling that I'm not coming back here again.
Yeah.
And that if I went on another convoy, I was going to die because I saw a lot of death.
Yeah.
And I felt I was very near to it.
Yeah.
And as it happened, one day I came out from the boiler room up towards the office of the ship, and I saw an advert on the wall. Volunteers are required for hazardous duties ashore. And I thought, hazardous duties ashore? I've just come through, I'm going to have a bit of this.
Nothing could be as hazardous as what you've already experienced.
Exactly. So I volunteered, and after a few days I was sent to the Naval HQ there.
Yeah, just
You
over
see
our
where
shoulder.
where the tower is there.
Yeah, yeah.
To meet Lieutenant Crabb and Lieutenant Bailey,
Yeah.
two Royal Naval officers who had been diving on ships out here in the bay, removing limpet mines that the Italian frogmen who were based over in Spain,
Yeah.
across the way,
They were planting them,
they
and Commander Crabb was removing them.
yeah, exactly.
And what he was looking for was more volunteers. I think,
Exactly,
wasn't it? Yeah.
exactly.
Did you know at the time that, although you'd thought that these convoys to Malta were the most dangerous thing you'd ever done, did you realise at the time that you were possibly jumping out of the frying pan?
Into the fire. Not until I met Lieutenant Crabb, who he was then,
Yeah.
who stated that the job you volunteer for is removing limpet mines off the bottom of ships. I hope you can swim.
Yeah.
It was simple as that.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, sir, I can swim quite good, frankly. He said, get undressed, he said, and just down to your underwear, he said, and put that on. And he threw a diving set at me,
Yeah.
which was in reality a DSEA, Davis Submarine Escape Apparatus, for escaping from submarines rather than going down, made for coming up. And said, those weights down there, go into those shoes there, about size 13, put them on, you'll need them to keep down on the water. And he simply said, follow me. And I followed him under a large tanker. After a couple of hours, I got a grasp of what was going on. I had to give myself a guff of oxygen, not like the apparatus of today that's fed to you. I had to go, give myself a guff, and when I required more, another guff.
Yeah.
Then I couldn't get up to the surface. I used to kick off the weighted shoes and swim like crazy to the surface on what I used to call a longer than prayer. Ships were going down. Ships were blowing up here and being sunk.
Yeah.
The Italians were swimming across the bay here.
From this town, this is Algeciras.
Yeah,
in
from
our
Algeciras
background,
there.
across this bay, which is about what, 4 miles? You said?
Yes, they were swimming across in the. No, they were coming across on two-man torpedoes
Yeah.
from a ship that had been interned there, and had the door cut in the bottom to let the torpedoes out. And she'd been interned, but it was very obvious that there was nothing wrong with the ship, and it was being used for other purposes.
Yeah.
The frogmen used to swim from a villa where the tanks are there, over there now.
Yeah.
There was a villa there.
That's where the house was it?
Yes,
where they were living. Yeah.
that's where the house was. And they used to come across, swim nearly every night, carrying inflatable bombs.
Uh-huh.
In something like a child's thing that is with the swimming.
Yeah.
And in the centre was a bomb weighing about 2 or 3 kilos. And they'd take it down below, put it under the ship, and the buoyancy would jam it underneath.
Uh-huh.
And then with a pencil, there used to be a pencil there, they snapped, acid pencil, and they used to burn through to actuate it.
Oh, I see.
And
Very clever.
yeah,
And then there was a time delay before it went off, I take it, so they
yes,
could get away. Yeah.
about half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you find the first few days of your new service? Did you find it exciting or?
Adrenaline was flowing through every vein in my body.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually loved it.
So you spent how long here demining these ships?
2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Yes. Until Italy capitulated in '43. Oh, I must say also, there wasn't only myself and Commander Crabb. And we were called the Underwater Working Party.
It doesn't sound that dynamic,
No.
considering
Or
what you
romantic.
did has inspired a James Bond film,
Yes.
Frogman's Spy, that I'm thinking of. Of course, the film that we mentioned, made in 1958, The Silent Enemy,
Yes.
and numerous documentaries and stories and books about you and your career in the Navy.
Yes.
But the Underwater Working Party,
Yes.
they could have thought of a bit more of a dynamic name for it, don't you
I
think?
agree. I agree.
There was a ship over there,
Yes.
moored with a secret compartment,
That is true, yes.
And now-
She was called, the Italian ship was called the Old Terror.
the Old Terror.
And down below, she had a large workshop below water level. And inside the hull, they put out a door, about 6 by 4 feet that is, that a two-man torpedo could come through.
Yeah.
So
They were operating. Now, how did you find out about that? Did you go over there and do a bit of a mission? to find
yes,
this?
the idea was brought up about the Old Terror, that it was an Italian ship, so obviously we were looking at the enemy from the top of this rock.
Yeah.
With the telescopes. We used to have daily a delivery of water on a small tanker that used to come from Algeciras to top up the tanks of Gibraltar.
Yeah.
And it was 1 or 2 drop words by the crew of 3 Spaniards aboard that made us think there was something over there. Just drop words now and again. Unless they knew, of course, that the Italians were putting mines on our ships here. Commander Crabb said he was sure there's something going on, and he requested that we investigated this. But the Admiralty said, no, we're in neutral waters and we can't do that. But John Morgan said to me one day, wouldn't it be good if we could go over and take a look? I said, yes, it would. Should we try? He said, how are we going to do it? I said, with a bottle of whiskey, of course, for the crew.
So you bribed the captain of the
By the
water
captain
tanker.
to take us over, because we knew we'd be coming back in the evening to top up the tanks. And so I said, yes, we'll have a go. So we found some old civic clothes, which we dressed in, and I said, Joe had not a word of Spanish. I had a spattering at that time. And I said, don't speak in English at all to us when we're over there, for chances anyone nearby hears us speak. So we actually went across and we landed. I don't know if you can see it from here. The Old Terror was tied up there.
That was the dock straight across here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the white ships are over the back,
Yeah.
that's the actual landing place where we landed. And we walked right round, about an hour's walk round to get towards her. And there was a Spanish sentry on the gangway, and on the upper deck was a number of men, young men, in all sorts of disguises of civilian, but also very bad disguise, because you could tell that they were sailors,
Yeah.
without a doubt. So I just passed I said to Rattler, don't speak, leave it to me. And as we passed the gangway, I nodded to the sentry and said, buenos dias, senor. And he just grunted back, and we carried on, having a good look, walking slowly past the ship. And when we were pretty sure that there was something going on, we decided to return and picked up the boat, the tanker, with our friends, the Spanish friends, who stunk of whiskey. And when we got back and reported this, Commander Crabb bristled. You'll have me court-martialed, etc.
Did he know that you'd gone?
No.
You didn't tell
No,
him?
he wasn't aware until the following morning when we told him where we'd been. And our suggestion was then, well, the number of people made a suggestion, some of the mines we've taken off and rendered safe, let's go back and put them on her and blow her up.
Yeah.
And they requested the Admiralty numerous times to do this, but they would not play ball. They said Spain was a neutral country and we would very likely turn them against us if we went across there.
So the Italians were allowed to continue putting mines on ships.
Exactly, but we daren't.
But you daren't. Isn't it a shame?
It is.
But,
I'd have loved to have gone across with a mine and banged it on.
Yeah, of course you would have done. And you would have done it too, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I certainly would.
You had no wetsuits or dry suits in those days, did you?
No, we had no such thing. We were way, way behind the Italians, who had wonderful skin-tight rubber suits and pure silk underwear.
Really?
For one-piece underwear.
That's luxury compared to you.
Exactly.
And you dove in shorts, didn't you? That was it?
Well, we had a swimming costume and weighted gym shoes.
Gym shoes. They didn't even have flippers in
No, we had. The Italians had, yes. But we were 25 years behind the Italians. We used to go up to a ship, one man would dive in the port side and one on the starboard side, if we had plenty of time. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd do the port side, go right along the bilge keel, then dive underneath the ship and come up the other side and search along there on the other side, on the starboard side, for instance. And it was a pleasure to get in that water because it's downside warmer than the air outside.
Yeah, yeah. So now I know for a fact, Sidney, after reading a lot of information about you, that you're a bit of a poet. Tell me how this poem that you wrote came about. You were up leaving Reykjavik in the Denmark Strait somewhere, weren't you?
We were in Iceland, in Reykjavik, taking on oil.
Yeah.
On our destroyer, the Zulu.
Uh-huh.
And we heard that the Hood was out.
Yeah.
The great British battleship.
Uh-huh.
And so we're immediately told to get to sea in action stations.
Now you were chasing the Bismarck that sunk the Hood, weren't you?
That's right.
1,000 white horses flecked with blood at the sinking of the Hood. So much death, so much gore. What an awful bloody war. Shot and shell must now fall against Bismarck's iron walls. All now must abide till we revenge the men that died. So now more death, now more gore. What an awful bloody war. Now, what fascinates me, Sid, is that you've come through so many skirmishes, you've seen so much action.
Yes.
What happened on the first incident when you were still in the Navy?
We were coming down the coast of Norway on the Zulu, destroyer Zulu. We met two German destroyers up this fjord.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd bang at each other. And I was on the upper deck, and my action station position, instead of being down in the magazine, was on the upper deck on a pump on the searchlight platform. And there's a sudden vicious flash, a thud, and I recall little more.
And the next thing you knew, you woke up in hospital, didn't
yes.
you? Yeah.
I woke up 3 days later in hospital in Glasgow. I was all stitched up here because I got hit in the chest with a lump of shrapnel, piece of shrapnel, and I got hit in the jaw. And all my teeth were knocked out, and I woke up finding my jaw wired together with gold thread, or gold wire, I should say. And under the care of a wonderful woman called Sister Black.
Sister Black.
Yeah, who really looked after me and got me well again.
But there were people around you that were killed, weren't there?
Oh, there was, yes.
So you were lucky to get out of that
I got
alive,
away
really.
with that, yes.
Yeah.
Literally, I got away with it. So, yes, talk about scratches. These were scratches towards what other people got.
Yeah, and then the second incident, which happened right here in Gibraltar, didn't it?
Right behind you there.
We're looking down at the dock area now where it's happened. Tell us about what happened there. Some sort of a ship that...
Yes, I was down below in our diving boat, just checking on the engine. And lying just ahead of us was a cable layer, a very long ship, and she was leaving port. And I think she was coming on her back spring to get out, and there was a loud snap, and I believe the spring snapped. And the next thing I knew, she crushed into our little boat, which was less than 20 foot long, and crunched us. I was thrown into the water, under the water, and she'd started her engines, and the screw was racing like mad, and the pressure shoved me right along the dockyard wall.
By the side of that dockyard wall there?
Alongside that dockyard wall, yeah.
In the corner?
Yes.
So the big ship had literally split your ship in two, your boat in two, and pushed you through the whole of the
As
hull.
our Chief Petty Officer, Thorpe, stated, Commander Crabb, how a boat is destroyed like a biscuit in the hut.
Really?
Yes.
And you were inside that biscuit?
Yes.
You were very lucky.
I know.
Whilst here in Gibraltar, guess what we found? We came down to see if we could find where he lived. And we found it. Here we are. This is Jumper's Bastion in Gibraltar. As you can see around us now, this has now become a gymnasium. But we're in the actual part of the building where Sidney Knowles and Commander Crabb used to be billeted. This is where they slept. And if you look above my head here, you'll see the original hooks where he hung his hammock. So, Sid, after your amazing 2 years here in Gibraltar, then I believe you went to Italy.
Yes, as Italy capitulated at the end of '43, Commander Crabb was given the duty of clearing or attempting to clear all the ports in Italy on the western side, north of Naples, over towards Geneva, Leghorn and Geneva. So he asked, all the rest of our team went home. I hadn't been home for 3 years, and I wasn't particularly wanting to go home, because I had no one that only on my tyrannical father. Yeah. So I wanted to keep away from him.
Plus, by this time, I suppose you'd become such good buddies with Crabb.
With Commander Crabb, yes.
Yeah.
We had a friendship that's not, how shall I say, it's not frowned upon, but it's not usual in the Royal Navy where an officer and a rating become great friends. But I think this was due to, I admired his guts, I really did. He was a very brave man. Yeah. And maybe he admired mine. And there's a bond.
I was going to say, it's all very well praising Commander Crabb because he was a fantastic man, but at the same token, so were you. How much bravery did you have doing all this here? I suppose you said to me before, at the time, you just don't think about it. You've got a job to do, and you do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
But looking back on that, you must realise now that you had a certain amount of bravery to you as well, didn't you?
If you say so.
I think so. I'm reading your story, and I think it's fantastic what you did, both of you.
Thank you.
And your team as well. So you went off to Italy. Just let me ask you this. Did you enjoy your time more in Italy than here, or more in Gibraltar?
More in Italy.
You had better fun there.
And I love this place, Jib, yes, because it brings me so many memories, good and bad. But I loved Italy. Yeah. I loved Italy for the people, for how long it's been there, Rome, etc. Yeah. I mean, I went to Rome with Commander Crabb, and he was a very big Catholic, and organised a trip into St. Peter's, yes.
Home of the Pope.
Yeah, exactly. I said, no, you must come along with me and see some wonderful paintings and things. Yeah. Because he was a keen follower of art. Yeah. Was Crabby, and he used to buy many paintings out of Italy.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes. And I think they finished up in the Queen Mother's house.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Many of them. Oh, yes, we got round it. We went round the Vatican. A little Irish priest took us round. Yeah. And it was empty. Now, 20 years later, I went again, and there were thousands of people rubbing shoulders.
But you landed in Naples when you went, didn't you?
Yes, we landed in Naples, and Vesuvius was erupting.
At the time you were?
Yes, and ash was falling everywhere. There was great lava rolling down the streets and buildings crashing around us. Set off north on a roving commission.
A roving commission to clear all the ports of any mines?
To check each port to see if there's any mines where shipping would be coming in, carrying ammunition and supplies for the Fifth Army, American Fifth Army. Yeah. The villages around Leghorn were in the hands of the Germans, and the only way we could get to there was going by motor torpedo boat, which ran us from Civitavecchia to up to Leghorn. Leghorn had been taken by partisans, and so we were free to go in.
We've relocated now from a lovely day out in Gibraltar. We've come up to a nice country area not far from where Sidney lives with his family, just behind Marbella here in Andalusia. And we're continuing on chatting to Sidney and his experiences in the Royal Navy, and of course during the Second World War. Sidney, thanks once again for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
We've had a great day filming in Gibraltar. How did you feel when you went back to Gibraltar? Was it a nice experience for you?
It was very emotional.
Was it really? Yeah. Brought back a lot of memories.
Oh, tremendous amount. Tremendous amount. When you were looking down into the harbour from up the rock where we were, and you saw quite a number of today's shipping there. Yeah. I was seeing what I saw during the war.
Yeah.
Literally hundreds and hundreds of ships waiting to go into North Africa and on to Malta and Alexandria. And I could see, I virtually started diving again.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you were there doing
Yeah.
it again.
Yes.
Talking about your story of your experiences in the Second World War, of course we got up to the part where you'd gone to Italy.
Commander Crabb was ordered to choose a diver out of his party, of the underwater working party, and go with him on a roving commission into Italy to try to make sure that all the ports from Rome north were clear of mines, so that the American Fifth Army, who were on the western side of Italy, and the Eighth Army British was on the right-hand side of Italy, looking at the map.
Yeah.
And to make sure they were clear so that their supply ships could get in. Ammunition, clothing, everything. Yes.
Where was your next port of call?
Well, we headed up the Lira Valley, heading towards Rome. And we passed Monte Cassino, and the village of Cassino, that had been heavily, very tremendously bombed by American and British bombers, and shelled to hell. It was a complete wreck. Beautiful monastery, all just flat and lying scattered on the mountainside. But still there was a flag flying above it, and it was a Polish flag.
Yeah.
Because the Poles, regiments of Poles, Australians, New Zealand, Indians, in a combined attack, had taken it back from the Germans.